Hello and welcome to the first episode of the Synwave podcast. This is George, the team president,
And this is Vas, the team secretary.
and we're going to be hosting the first episode. So, what are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about our team, who we are, the problem we're addressing, and how we intend to solve it, and just just give you an introduction to what this podcast is going to be about and some of our activities.
So I think best way to start is to talk about the fact that we are a student research group and we are planning to attend the iGEM competition.
So, IGEM stands for International Genetically Engineered Machine.
And it's an annual competition that occurs in Paris for the past few years. And they hold a grand jamboree in October, which we plan to attend, where a lot of different universities and students attend.
So with all these teams, there are a variety of different projects, but they all have one thing in common. This is synthetic biology. What is synthetic biology? Simply put, by the NIH, synthetic biology is a field of science that involves redesigning organisms for useful purposes. That's done by engineering them to have new abilities. So, what might these useful purposes be?
Well, Aijin puts them perfectly by describing their villages. Now, the three main sections is environment, healthcare, and advancements. Some of the projects that you could work on could be bioremediation, diagnostics, therapeutics, software and AI, biomanufacturing, and with 2024 adding oncology, infectious diseases, fashion and cosmetics. There's endless possibilities in which synthetic biology can be applied. To me, one of the biggest places that it could be applied is the climate crisis. A group of researchers had recently been able to modify a bacteria to eat plastic, and we all know how important that is because there's a lot of plastic pollution in the ocean, and trying to get rid of it should be a really big goal that humanity should strive to achieve.
Um, as a biomedical engineer, I think about synthetic biology in a very particular way. I think about it using the main principles of engineering, which are understanding the mechanism of a topic, a thing, physics maybe, and then using those mechanisms to produce a desired effect. So, applying this to synthetic biology, I think I have a really good example for all of you to understand how this might be used. Over the summer, our team conducted some experiments for practice. And what we did is we coded a bacterium to glow fluorescently. How did we go about this? So, first, you have to understand the genetic code of the bacteria, specifically, this is the DNA, and then you can use this to modify it and make it produce either a substance or a desired effect. So what we did is we modified it to make it glow fluorescently, splicing different DNA strands that, with different information to produce this effect. And you will ask, why would you need a bacterium to glow? Well, besides of the fact that it's cool, it can be used, for example, in detection. How though? You modify it a bit more so that when it detects a substance, it glows. And then by measuring the glow, you can very simply also measure the amount of that substance in a sample, which is really fun way and simple way of understanding how synthetic biology works.
Now, just to talk about the iGEM competition just a tiny bit more, it's a prestigious competition. You know, it's been running for a couple of years, and a couple of startup companies attend it, but more importantly, a couple of established companies in the scientific community they attend as well.
An important, not important, but exciting fact is that a lot of item teams end up spinning out and producing their own startup companies. So you know that a lot of these prototypes and projects end up becoming real important solutions to world problems, and that's why we think that competition is important. But where do we fit in all this?
So, as a team, you know, we spend quite a long time trying to figure out, you know, what is the problem that we should address. You know, to take it back from the start, we spend some time getting team members to join, you know, get everyone excited for iGEM. And then with every new member that joined, we had a lot of ideas piling on. We kept diverging. You know, every member brought like three, four ideas that they wanted to work on. But, you know, we had to converge it. And so George had made a great point by saying, maybe we should think locally. You know, what affects Glasgow? What affects Scotland? And we came to the conclusion of Alzheimer's and dementia.
Yeah, and as soon as Alzheimer's was mentioned, you saw a lot of students being more passionate suddenly. And we think this is because most of us have people in our circle that might be developing neurodegenerative diseases like dementia or Alzheimer's, or being scared of developing them. And I think we all have that small fear of what if something happens to my loved ones? What if something like that happens to me even? It's it's quite a big uncertainty, and we want to address that. And we believe that this uncertainty is because, first of all, there has been a gap in our knowledge of why Alzheimer has been developing and why it appears, and then there's also a gap of knowledge to the people.
And with by figuring out our problem, we decided the best way to tackle this is to release or to prototype a diagnostics test that would give you a really like early sign that maybe you're prone to developing Alzheimer's or other neurodegenerative diseases. And the best part is, a lot of these diseases, they've got an environmental factor to them. So being able to change your lifestyle also gives you a fighting chance to prevent the disease from forming.
Yeah, and a lot of the cases you see of diagnosis is when people start developing symptoms, because that's when they become aware that they maybe have to get tested for something like that. And at this point, in a lot of cases, it's already too late. Um, and it is pretty notable that there's been a lot of new drugs and treatments becoming available, like donanemab, which is also quite lately been approved and licensed in the UK for use in early stages. But as you've noted, I said that it's approved only for an early stages. That's because it only helps slow the degeneration process down in the early stages, and in the later stages is not that useful. So we really wanted to work for the people and with the latest research and treatments available to allow them to have a head start and use whatever tools they could have available to fight with this disease.
And so, we've talked about the problem for quite a lot now, and I think it's no better time than now to talk about our team. So, our team is very multidisciplinary. We've got a good load of biomedical engineers. We've also got a couple of biochemists, a couple of medical students with us, and one business student. And with him on our team, it really goes to show that it's not a science-heavy, competition. There's a lot of different factors for releasing this product, and there's a lot of different ways we can tackle this problem.
Yeah, besides the science, as a team, we have to tackle our funding, our promotion, and we also, as I mentioned, besides the diagnostic, we also want to spread awareness. It's a pretty inherent part of who we are and why we care about this. And we aim to do this by having educational events, by professionals talking about their work on the field, and we want to also spread our knowledge to the people so they can know more and they can also be part of the fight against neurodegenerative diseases.
Yeah, and they can also support us by attending these seminars and stuff. But I also wanted, to mention that with this business side, it's given a lot of our team members a chance to, just see how this side works, especially for like me and George, who are part of the funding team. We get the chance to, understand how to market ourselves better, how to present ourselves so that companies are willing to form partnerships, and they understand what we want from them, but more importantly, what they gain from us.
Yeah, it's really interesting when you know that you have an idea that could potentially change the world. At least that's what we think. We think it's a really kind of new approach to this. You also have to convince the world that it's good for it. We have to figure out how we're going to tell the people what we want to do and make them understand why we think it's interesting to make it work. Because besides our work, we also need the help of the scientific community as well. So, yeah, of course, as you understand, all the members of our team are developing a kind of wide array of new skills that's going to be useful to them throughout their whole career. And it's just overall a really fun and exciting experience. There is some stress, of course, as with all big projects, but that's only it. It just fosters creativity, and you know that as engineers and medicine students and business students and biochemistry students, we're prone to work, well, we're bound to work in environments where what we do is important and there's going to be stress to move forward. So it's good that we learn how to do that from this stage.
And I think it helps that our team is split into multiple divisions. So as I mentioned, there's the funding team, but there's also the team that does the research, the team that's looking out for outreach. How can we get into schools and have poster boards up, teach the younger generation, what is a neurodegenerative disease, and what can we do to prevent it? What are we doing to prevent it? And talk about ourselves as well, and also contacting companies, uh, having seminars, having fundraising events.
Yeah, all these activities, the social media team, of course, and the events team, which this podcast is part of. And speaking of this podcast, we want to talk about what the next episode is going to be. Next episode, we're having our principal investigator, Julian Rebood. He's a lecturer in the University of Glasgow. He's been teaching some biomedical engineering courses, but also he is a researcher, and he's been part of he's been well guiding and mentoring previous IGEM teams of the University of Glasgow, but also has experience on his own with startups. And we think it's going to be pretty interesting to have him on the podcast to talk about what he's doing, what his research is on currently, and of course quiz him with questions on biology and more general knowledge questions because it's going to be fun.
But also, about our team as well, how much he's paying attention to us, I
Yeah, yeah.
guess.
How much he knows us.
Yeah.
That's going to be really fun. So yeah, make sure to hang around for the next episode. And before we end, I want to thank Emily Maxwell. She's a PhD student in the Advanced Research Center of University of Glasgow, and Julian brought me into contact with her because she wanted to give us some tips on how to run this podcast. And yeah, we want to thank her and make sure to check out her own podcast with her team, Semi, which can be found in all platforms where our podcast is also found, like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Listen Note. Yep.
Yeah.
This has been George,
And this has been Vas.
and thank you for hanging around to listen to us speak.